NFL football is back. Week 1 wraps up tonight. We've got the Seahawks versus Broncos. We'll talk about that. No off season's back. Woo-woo. We did our Bama Brigade show on Thursday night, and then we did another show yesterday. I'm Joe Will. Got Tyler Shibish here and Josh Clockler. Yes, I'm using your full name. I refuse to just call you Clack. You're not like Prince. You're not like one of these people that just gets to go by one name. You're Clack. Tyler pointed this out. It says, other side. Where legends are mad. I was mad yesterday, so I'm glad we had our little show to hash things out. Guys, how you doing today? Tyler, we'll start with you first.
Good. I mean, I've had a busy last week or so, but it's finally wrapped up, and I'll be a little less busy now for the next at least couple of weeks. Eventually, I gotta start the whole moving process, but that's the later problem right now.
Yeah, you're moving to Chicago, aren't you? Is what you said?
Yeah, I don't have a set time yet, so
yeah,
Tyler drop that on you guys. But
yeah, Tyler's tired of being a Vikings fan, so he's switching over to the Bears.
Absolutely no chance.
Bears. Clack,
Bears.
How you doing?
I'm great. How are y'all?
I just said how I am.
Well,
were you not listening?
I was listening. I just
Tyler,
that's a normal response for
inside Clack's head is just like the symbol monkey going like
yeah.
No, yeah, it's a monkey from Call of Duty Nazi Zombies. It's just like
anyway.
You already know that Clack's thinking of something stupid to say.
Anyway,
so that's probably why he's not paying attention.
Anyway, we have Monday Night Football, and since we're doing our show on Monday instead of Sunday, Monday Night Football predictions.
Yeah, people are probably really just tired of seeing us by now, but they can suck it up.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, Monday Night Football predictions. You said Denver by like 1 billion points. I mean, just poor Seattle. I don't think Seattle has a shot, right? Like Geno Smith, I have mad respect for Geno Smith. I don't think he's a starting level NFL quarterback. And that's kind of important, especially against a good defense like the Broncos. And especially now the Broncos also, theoretically, with Nathaniel Hackett and Russell Wilson, should have a pretty dang good offense as well, right? So I just think that pretty much every phase of the game, the Broncos have a huge advantage. And I think that Seattle's in kind of a rebuilding year. I mean, they're one of the favorites to get Bryce Young or CJ Stroud or someone like that. So I don't think a loss will hurt too bad for a fan. You never like losing, but they can mark it one win closer. As my James Fletcher, you remember James? He's a big Seahawks fan. He as he so graciously put it, when the New York Football Giants won yesterday, the Seahawks now have a half game lead in the Bryce Young sweepstakes over every team that won. So,
well, I mean, I don't think the game's gonna be close tonight. We kind of talked about beforehand. I feel like Seattle should be playing Drew Lock, but I'm also very biased I'm biased for Drew Lock. I love Drew Lock, and I think if you're gonna make that trade, I know the headliners in that trade with the draft picks, the first rounders, and then Noah Fant, who's actually kind of an underrated tight end. I think will probably have a decent year for them. But guys, come on. Let Russ cook, let Drew Lock cook.
Broncos country, let's ride.
I'm delusional as crap about Drew Lock, but I think that Pete Carroll's he is the best coach he's ever had. So I wish they would just – I mean, who knows, maybe too. With Geno Smith, he's been in the league for so long. He could have a really horrible game tonight, and they might decide to go with Drew Lock because he's younger and has kind of shown flashes that he can be decent in the league. And then also maybe, like, you never like to see injuries, but an injury – like one injury away from
shows like, oh God, please. I want Geno Smith to get hurt so bad.
I'm not going to say that this is like Justin Herbert in the Tyrod Taylor situation.
Yeah. Geno Smith doesn't happen to need like a lung puncture, does he?
I'm not going to wish, any injuries, but as long as it's not a serious injury, I wouldn't be completely upset if Drew Lock found his way into the game tonight. I'm predicting it right here. Drew Lock.
In the game.
comes into the game and just slings it, and he brings
the other
them
team?
back to
Are
the
you
top.
talking about, is he going to play Madden or something? Because that's the only way he'll ever sling it.
No, I'm calling it right now. They'll be down. He comes in the game. You heard it right here on the No Offseason podcast. Drew Lock brings Seattle back and wins the game.
Yeah, Joe definitely
I'm not
drafts
affiliated
Joe
with
Lock.
Joe's opinions.
Joe definitely drafted Drew Lock in fantasy and is going to win
Right.
against no points.
No, I didn't, but he'll probably have one less point than Aaron Rodgers did. So
That's true. Can't believe Aaron Rodgers scored 1 point. Anyway.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I can't believe it either, guy. That was my fantasy quarterback. He really.
I mean, he did play against the Minnesota Vikings. So.
We'll get into that.
I will say real quick. One thing I wanted to touch on real quick though is he said that Pete Carroll is the best coach that Drew Lock has ever had, and I kind of agree to an extent. But Pete Carroll, I think, especially offensively, has been kind of washed the last couple of years. He is one of those same kind of problem that we've talked about a lot on this show. He's one of those older style coaches that wants to just run the ball all the time, despite the fact that they're not a great running team, despite the fact that that's not the best strategy to win. Like, you look at the league right now, there's one team really that is like a running team that's had a lot of success. I mean, maybe two with the 49ers, but both teams that were running teams lost this last week, right? The Titans, the 49ers, and they just they didn't look that great. The Ravens, I guess, did good, but
Pete Carroll wants to run unless it's first down on the 1 yard line in the Super Bowl.
Right.
We're going to pass it.
I think Pete Carroll is still a good coach. Obviously, he's getting up there in age, so it's kind of tough to be consistently the GOAT unless you're Nick Saban. But also, I don't know. It's NFL can be tough sometimes. I mean, this year, all jokes aside, he doesn't have a quarterback really, so it's kind of just like you sit around twiddling your thumbs, hoping that you can get some of your younger players to ball out, and you can build on that next year.
Yeah.
But yeah, I want this game to be close, but I don't think it will be. I mean, I've scored predictions. I don't know if we're doing them, but I'd probably say like 31-14 Denver.
I was also going to say 31, but I was going to say like 31-10.
I'm going to go 35-17.
I mean, I thought about saying 31-13, but I mean, these aren't two NFL teams at the end of the day. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
it's so hard.
And with Seattle, too, they might have Geno Smith, but they've got DK Metcalf. They've got Tyler Lockett. They've got, in my opinion, pretty decent running backs. I think Rashad Penny is decent. I'm sure we'll see.
Is Kenneth Walker playing? Yeah.
I know he had the groin injury, or he had an injury. I don't know if he's going to play, but I think Rashad Penny did really well towards the tail end of last year. I should know because I had him in fantasy football. So I think he has a decent game. I mean, you still got weapons. I talked about Noah Fant. So they might be okay. I can see him scoring a couple touchdowns tonight.
Yeah. Kenneth Walker, by the way, is inactive.
Okay. And the Broncos' defense is solid as well. So you've got Pat Surtain, who'll probably be on DK. So, I mean, who knows what's going to happen. But, yeah, I think we can all agree that this won't be a close game.
Yeah.
So going on to Thursday night, the season kicked off Thursday night. Well, I thought would have been a really good game. Bills playing at the Rams turned out not to be a very good game. Josh Allen, probably everyone pretty much has him winning MVP. Him or Patrick Mahomes came out 3 touchdowns, 3 passing touchdowns, and 1 rushing touchdown. And as the Bills beat the Rams 31-10, second worst loss for the defending champion. Thoughts? Josh Allen, what a game.
Man, the Rams are really missing their offensive mastermind, offensive coordinator, huh?
I would agree.
But I just want to laugh about that because I saw that take a lot after the Rams, often kind of looked a little more stagnant than we're used to. A lot of people are like, oh, they don't have Kevin O'Connell. Maybe he's gone. And then Kevin O'Connell actually looked good offensively. So it was like, wait, maybe there actually is a little truth to that. But I don't know. I think that Matt Stafford just looked a lot worse. I know Matt Stafford like was tied for the league in picks last year or something, but he turned the ball over a bunch, and it seemed like the weirdest thing to me is it seemed like he just didn't trust any receiver not named Cooper Kupp. Like there, you could see the
I know
videos
you
on.
saw those memes.
Yeah, well, and it's not even just the memes. There's some truth to it too, right? There's truth to all memes. Like there's Allen Robinson went out there and ran like 57 routes and had 2 targets all game. So, like, and if you watch the game too, there's times where Matt Stafford would throw to a double or triple teamed Cooper Kupp instead of like a wide open Allen Robinson. So I don't know what was going on with his head, like in his head. I know Cooper Kupp is really good, and Cooper Kupp still had a good game, but anyone will have a good game when you just force fed like that.
I think it's a combination of a few things. I mean, obviously, we see it a lot with you got the Super Bowl hangover. You don't have Kevin O'Connell anymore. With Matt Stafford, he struggled. I know he had surgery in the offseason on his shoulder, or he had some shoulder issues, and he said that those issues weren't going to be a factor, but he did just look completely off and out of sync. And then give the Bills defense some credit. They were blowing right through the Rams offensive line.
Miller. Oh, sorry. I was going to say Von Miller looked a lot more dominant than I thought he would with the Bills in
Yeah.
his debut.
He looked good. And, I mean, that Bills defensive line is the best defensive line in the league with all the guys that they have on there. So I think, like I said, it's a combination of Stafford being banged up, the Super Bowl hangover. But I think that the Rams will kind of figure it out. It's week 1, but try not to be too harsh with the first week because there were a lot of surprises the first week of games that I just didn't expect. I also think, too, that we build these games up. Like, this was the first game of the year, but it was also a great matchup. So we built the game up to be a great game. And so we were all just, like, very disappointed when – I mean, if you're a Bills fan, it was a great game. For a Rams fan, it wasn't all that great. But I think the Rams will be okay. And I think the Bills – I'm not ready to crown them Super Bowl champs after this game, but I think they're very much so in the conversation. And Josh Allen's very much the favorite to win MVP for now.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, the AFC is if we're being honest, I feel like the AFC is really stacked with quarterbacks. You've got a top quarterback in the AFC West and East. You know, the AFC is going to be really hard to beat. Whoever comes out of the AFC, I think, wins the Super Bowl. Just, out of overreaction week 1. You got Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes, and Josh Allen. It's going to be fun to watch those 3 going forward.
Yeah, for sure. I don't think that's an overreaction, too. I think it's very well known this year that the NFC is not what it's been in past years. And
especially Aaron Rodgers losing his receivers.
Yeah. I'll say NFC West, most overrated division, I think, in football this year, just because the Cardinals, I think, are a little overrated. And I think the 49ers are going to go through some growing pains with Trey Lance.
We saw first game, they struggled and lost to the Bears. So, yeah, I agree with you. I think the West is going to not be all that great this year. The Cardinals got spanked, too, by the Chiefs.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the best division in football is probably going to be the AFC West.
NFC
all
East,
4 teams. Yeah. They're 3-1 right now. So
AFC West is stacked.
It's just all 4 AFC West teams could be a playoff team. Like the Raiders are probably the weak link. I mean, okay, I guess the Broncos are a question mark because we haven't seen them play yet. In my opinion, the Raiders are probably a weak link, but that weak link would still be like the 1 or 2 seed in a lot of divisions. So
moving on. I think we can move on now. We've got the Philly game on here. So the Eagles beat the Lions 38-35. A lot of offense in that game. Got to give a nod to my boy Jalen Hurts, even though he said they didn't play all that well. I mean, I think they played that pretty well. They had 4 rushing touchdowns from 4 separate players. Hurts had 1, Miles Sanders had 1, Kenneth Gainwell, and Boston Scott. So that's very impressive. It's not all that common to see that. And then some takeaways. A.J. Brown looked damn good. I was one of those people when they paid him all that money saying, I don't know why they're paying him all that money. I mean, he's decent, but he doesn't really deserve all that. But he made the most of his targets. He had 10 receptions for 155 yards, and then just looked big and fast and like a dominant true number one receiver. And then also DeAndre Swift looked like one of the best backs in the league. He had 15 carries for 144 yards and a touchdown. He also had 2 touchdowns basically vultured away from him by Jonathan Williams. So he could have easily had 3. And believe me, I was sitting there watching him because just my luck, I played against somebody this week that had Saquon and Swift on their team. So it's a recurring theme on the show. I always find a way to sprinkle in my fantasy issues. But what are you guys' thoughts on the Eagles-Lions game? I thought the Lions showed some fight. Ultimately, couldn't get the job done. But, 3 points against a pretty loaded Eagles team is nothing to sneeze at.
It was like a sloppy, very sloppy game, for being honest. I mean, neither offense looked, you see 38-35, but like you said, Jalen Hurts was not that great. Jared Goff is never that great. I feel like the Lions are getting better. Like, I feel like Dan Campbell, the Lions are never going to be relevant, let's be real. But, if anybody's going to make them look good, Dan Campbell's done a good job. But I think both, but I don't think either one of those teams make the playoffs. We're overreacting to week 1. But
who's going to win the NFC East then? One NFC East team has to make the playoffs.
That brings
if
me
it's
to
not the
one.
Cowboys and it's not the Eagles, then
I think
it's either the Giants or the Commanders.
I think that's what I think is going to happen. We saw the Commanders make it to playoffs at 7-9 2 years ago because that division is so weak.
So you would say the Commanders will make the playoffs over the Eagles?
Yes, I would.
I would very much so enjoy
right
that.
now, this year, I would take Carson Wentz over Jalen Hurts this year.
I think the Eagles are a pretty dang decent team. I think they're probably my pick for the playoffs. But I wouldn't be surprised if the NFC East. And it's kind of like a weird cop out to say this. But the NFC East, it's never who you think is going to win the division. And hasn't it was it a repeat last year finally, or has it still been 15 years without a repeat winner?
I think it's been 15. I don't think we've had a repeat winner. And I think that obviously I'm a Commanders fan, but I do think I think the Eagles win the division, but I think overreaction after seeing the way the Commanders played this week, I don't think it'd be all that crazy to say that they could win the division.
You also have the Jaguars.
And we saw that Dallas is going to be without Dak for a while, so they're pretty much toast. I know the Giants won this week, but I don't really think that they're all that impressive to me. Saquon's an incredible specimen, but I don't know. I guess we'll see.
Clack, the Commanders did play the Jaguars, but the Eagles also just played the Lions, and nothing against the Lions, but
what's with all this Lions slander? Put some respect on Dan Campbell.
I'm always a Lions slanderer because I think Dan Campbell's a little overrated because he has a funny personality. He's easy to root for, and I think that people think he's a better coach. Not a better coach. He could be a pretty darn good coach, but he's unproven, right? He hasn't done anything to warrant all this hype. And then 2, they were on Hard Knocks this year, so people kind of got to know the team, got to love the team, and I think that always tends to have people overrated a little bit because you get to see all this process that they're going through, and you get to see all these good plays from training camp and go oh, they're going to be pretty decent. So I don't think they're going to be as bad as they have been in the past, but I would not be surprised if it's a repeat of last year where they have a bunch of 1-score games but just can't finish it out because they're just not a good enough team yet. Could they be in 2 years maybe? Sure. But I don't think they're there yet.
I do want to say that we're all not off to a great start because the Seahawks have already scored.
I was fixing to go there.
Geno Smith just had the pocket breakdown and he scrambled and threw it deep to the tight end. So,
hey, I'm only 3 points away right now.
There you go.
So let's talk about let's talk about the Steelers and the Bengals. Kind of a crazy game. And, I just want to say right off the bat, most impactful thing in that game wasn't Joe Burrow's 4 interceptions. No. It was the Bengals long snapper tearing his bicep. Because that, honestly, they had a block kick to win the game and several missed kicks. And I, honest to God, think that it was because the snaps were kind of wonky and took a bit to get down because they had to put their backup tight end in at long snapper.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. That game was kind of painful to watch just because the Steelers' defense is so great, but their offense is not the best. And Najee had a receiving touchdown, but aside from that, I mean, he wasn't really able to do much on the ground. And I think that's going to be a kind of a common theme that we see with the Steelers this year. Last year, their offensive line wasn't great, but he was still able to produce. But this year, I think that the wear and tear from last year and the fact that they've done zero to improve their offensive line, in fact, there's an argument to be made it's actually gotten worse. I think that's going to affect Najee's stats, and hopefully he doesn't get hurt. But, I mean, they're kind of just running him into the ground, and they did nothing to help him this year with their offensive line.
Well, also they won, but at what cost, right? TJ Watt potentially now out for the whole season, maybe the torn pec, and that is just brutal for them. I know that they have a good defense around him, but has an argument for the best defensive player in football. I don't know how substantial the argument is, but you could make the case. And anytime you lose a player like that, your defense is going to take a hit no matter how good it is. And I know they have, like I said, other good players. Like Minka showed out. He had a blocked extra point and an interception, and he did great. But losing your top pass rusher like that is going to be brutal for the rest of the season.
Yeah, no, if he's out, I mean, it's already going to be an uphill battle for them in that division. But without him, it makes it so much harder.
One huge concern I have too for Joe Burrow is that first off, I do want to say I think Joe Burrow is overrated. I don't think he's a bad quarterback, but I think that a lot of people had him in the top 5 after one decent season. And I think it's the same thing where guys with it's the Dan Campbell effect where guys with fun personalities kind of get overrated a little bit because they're fun to root for. Joe Burrow has this cocky but good attitude, which is cool when you're winning. But then he's good. Don't get me wrong. But people have him in the elite tier already, and I just don't think he's there yet. But I think the biggest thing that's going to hinder him from getting there is he's still just getting lit up. The Bengals' offensive line is just letting him get murdered. I know he got sacked more than any other quarterback in the league last year by far, and they did not look like they had helped him out that much. Granted, the Steelers are real good at defense, but I'm so scared that Joe Burrow is never going to turn out because he's just going to get killed behind the Bengals offensive line.
Kind of the same with the Bucs last year. I mean, other than Tristan Wirfs, I mean, they struggled on the offensive line. It's what got them beat against the Rams. Seems like a lot of these good teams have elite quarterback play with the offensive line takes away from that because you're getting sacked 5 or 6 times a game.
Yeah, but Tom Brady is one of the only quarterbacks I think that can actually make up for that just because he throws the ball so quickly. That it doesn't matter as much. Obviously, it still matters, but
I don't think that it's going to be the case as much this year without Gronkowski because it seems like Gronkowski, if nobody else is open, Gronk's going to be open 5 yards down the field.
Right.
Will be interesting. They didn't. We'll get into that in a minute. They didn't look that great offensively last night at all, but we'll get into that in a minute.
Yeah, they played the Cowboys, who looked even worse offensively. But yeah, I agree with you. I think.
Speaking of offensively, the Vikings getting it done against the Packers and 23-7 over the Packers and a big divisional rival win for Kevin O'Connell in his first game. Tyler, this is your team. Take it away on what you thought.
Yeah. So I have a bunch of fun stats for you. So here, we'll go rapid fire. Number 1, Kirk Cousins now has a winning career percentage against the Green Bay Packers. He is 5-4 all time now against Aaron Rodgers head to head. Fun fact for people that like to take a little trash talk on Kirk.
Tyler's always been our fact guy.
Yeah, exactly. I have a lot of stats, and especially for teams that I keep up with. Fun fact: this is Justin Jefferson's first time ever being over 500 in his NFL career. We lost our last 2 openers and never got above 500. Fun fact, this is the lowest amount of points Aaron Rodgers has ever scored in his career against the Minnesota Vikings with 7. The only other time he's ever been on the Packers roster when the Packers scored less was that year that he was hurt, and God, what was his name? Was the quarterback for them. Anyway, they scored 3 points, but it was when they're back. It was the year that he broke his collarbone and they had to play their backup. Fun fact, Justin Jefferson set a new career high in receiving yards his first game under Kevin O'Connell. And I had one more. What was it? I don't know. I'll get back to it. But anyway, the offense looked really good. And I think that the defense also looked more solid than I thought they would. I know that the Packers had a lot of injuries and had no receivers and everything, but it was a huge breath of fresh air to watch an innovative offense and like an attacking offense too. Our very first drive, we went for it on 4th and 1 at the goal line. Mike Zimmer would have taken the 3 there. We didn't. Justin Jefferson got a touchdown. And I think that it's nice. Like, it's one game, right? I got to pump my brakes a little bit, but I'm pleasantly surprised and excited about the future of the team with Kevin O'Connell under the reins, because like he has a modern style offense, and that's what I've been asking for years with all the weapons we have.
Yeah, now you just have to watch one old school offensive coordinator call plays for your favorite teams, not two.
Right, exactly. And like one big example of that was like Dalvin Cook, for example, didn't even play a couple of drives when we were trying to run more power. Whereas like Mike Zimmer is like, oh, Dalvin Cook's good, we should just use him every play. Kevin O'Connell was a lot more situational with Dalvin Cook. He used him in the passing game more. He put him more in like zone plays. But
I think that statistically Cook's numbers will dip a lot this year, but I think the team overall will be a lot better.
Yeah, and I kind of agree with that, and I would take that any day of the year. Like, one huge thing too is like pre-snap offense or pre-snap movement. Excuse me. For example, Justin Jefferson himself had more more pre-play movement in the first quarter than he averaged in a game last year. Like, he went in motion 6 times in the first quarter, and he averaged like 5.4 per game last year, something like that. And that's just like, you watch it with the Rams last year. That's how they got Cooper Kupp open. They would move him around to different places, and he would get mismatches. And if you watch the game, Justin Jefferson was literally always open. And it was because they were scheming him open. It was like what we're talking about with, if you watched yesterday, what we're talking about with the Bama receivers. It wasn't just saying, hey, go beat this guy. It was like hey, we will get you a matchup with a linebacker, and then it'll be easier for you to beat this guy.
I feel like with the Vikings, I mean, I am a huge fan of Dalvin Cook, and I think this new offense gives Dalvin Cook a lot of help. I felt like in the years past, a lot of the Vikings' success rides on Dalvin Cook, and I don't think. I mean, yeah, Dalvin Cook is still going to be great, but it's not as much. He has to be great for you to win, especially when you're kind of opening up this offense with Justin Jefferson, and I think Adam Thielen's going to have a great year as well. I think Kevin O'Connell's really going to make Kirk. Matt Stafford is not like an elite quarterback, but look what Kevin O'Connell made him into, Super Bowl champion. I feel like, I'm not saying the Vikings are going to win the Super Bowl this year, but Kevin O'Connell is going to make them competitive, especially making Kirk Cousins looking good. I mean, Kirk Cousins has never been that bad, but he's never been elite. I think Kirk Cousins is going to get a lot better, working under an offensive-minded coach like Kevin O'Connell as opposed to a defensive guy like Mike Zimmer.
Well, and also working under an offensive coach that has a rapport with him, right? He was his quarterback coach when he was in Washington. And also working with an offensive-minded coach that actually wants him. Like, it's no secret after last year, especially all the drama, that Mike Zimmer was never a huge Kirk Cousins guy. And you've seen it before where, like, especially Mike Zimmer with all the players that were in his doghouse last year, if he doesn't like you, you are not going to shine because he will make sure to, like, actively make your job harder. And I think that
is Mike Zimmer coaching like a defensive coordinator or anything anywhere now?
No, not. I think he's probably going to take the year off. I wouldn't be surprised.
I think he's coaching somewhere, high school football.
Yeah,
middle school football.
But yeah, I mean, I think he'll be. Mike Zimmer absolutely deserves to be like a defensive coordinator somewhere. Just, I don't think he's going to get a shot at head coaching for a while anymore. Especially like because, like I said, it was kind of a bad look, all the bad blood, and like even if you. So I mean, obviously, I pay more attention to this than you guys would, but if you follow like any of the press conferences or anything from the Vikings players after the game, there was a lot of shade thrown at Mike Zimmer. Like there was a lot of like, wow, I've never been on a team where we feel this free, and like, wow, I've never been on a team where like we've been utilized correctly and all that. And it's like, wow, okay,
Free from the shackles of Mike Zimmer.
right. But
So-
yeah, I mean, one game, but I was pleasantly surprised. And also, I remembered another fun fact. It was the first time Aaron Rodgers has thrown an interception against an NFC North team in 3 years.
Wow.
2019 was the last time.
Wow.
But Harrison Smith caught an interception.
So staying on, we'll go to Joe's favorite team now, the Commanders, beating the Jags 28-23. Carson Wentz had some bad throws, but overall played a pretty good game. Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel, and Dotson looked pretty good. And then obviously Dotson had 2 touchdowns in his first game. Joe, were you happy with the Commanders' performance yesterday?
Oh yeah, I was really happy. I probably haven't been that happy from watching one of their games, and I mean, I don't know. It's been a long time. Usually, last year it was painful because you had Fitzpatrick hurt himself and was out for the year the first game, like I think the second series of the year in the opener. So, and then I had to sit through watching Taylor Heineke. So I think it was refreshing to actually have a quarterback they could throw the ball deep downfield. I'm so used to having these check down Charlies just kind of stepping in and keeping the team afloat. So Carson Wentz had, I think, 400 yards or 300 something yards, 4 touchdowns and 2 picks. One of the picks was, I mean, it was a pick. The second pick was a little bit kind of a freak play. I don't know if you guys saw it, but they were throwing a screen to the running back, and Trayvon Walker, number 1 pick in the draft, turns around and grabs the pick. And I'm like, yeah, that's on Wentz. But at the same time, it's like, how many NFL defensive linemen are going to make that play aside from like the freakishly athletic ones? So Wentz played really well. I was very surprised at not only the usage of Curtis Samuel, but the production that came from that usage. He was all over the field. I mean, they lined him up all over. And this is a guy that they signed to a big contract a couple years ago, didn't get the chance to really step on the field at all last year due to a hamstring injury that nagged. So it was awesome seeing him. I mean, Terry McLaurin's Terry McLaurin, so, you know, he's going to ball out. And then you touched on it, Jahan Dotson, those 2 touchdowns. I've always loved Jahan Dotson. You know, I have ties with Penn State because my family is a Penn State family. And so I've always loved him. When they took him at that spot, I was surprised, but I like to pick because I like the player. And if you like a guy, you know, you go and get him. But never in my wildest dreams would I think that he would have 2 touchdowns in his first NFL game, and one of them be the go-ahead touchdown to win the game. So as a Commanders fan, I mean, yeah, I don't think you can be happier about a first-week performance from a team that's not had a reputation for doing really anything. So, I mean, they played the Jaguars, but I think that's the best offensively. That's the best we've looked in a while. So, overall, I was pumped about it. I couldn't watch it because I don't have Sunday Ticket. I mean, I have YouTube TV, but I was kind of just following it on my phone. And when I saw the Jaguars came back, I was like, we're gonna lose this game, you know, whatever. And then I realized that wasn't the case. So very happy with the Commanders. They play the Lions next week. Another team that's not that great, but I'll be interested to see if they can hold them in check offensively at least a little bit. But great day to be a Commanders fan.
I do want to say too, real quick, wanted to give a shout out to Trayvon Walker. You mentioned him a little bit, but maybe the least talked about first overall pick ever. He had a pretty dang good game. Like, after all the no hype, I mean, he had an interception, he had 1 or 2 sacks, so he did pretty well for a not talked about at all number 1 overall pick. Like
it's weird because he was such a talked about prospect that had pushed him to being the first overall pick, and then nobody really talked about him, and everybody was saying he could be a bust. But I mean, Trayvon Walker and Aiden Hutchinson both, pick your poison, I think are going to have really solid NFL careers.
Yeah, I think that's the reason that he's not talked about, is because Hutch went like right after him, and Hutchinson was arguably like a more hyped up guy because like Hutchinson was the guy right for like 3 months, and then the last week it was like, oh wait, the Jaguars really like Trayvon Walker and they're gonna pick Trayvon Walker.
And I thought that was a smokescreen, and I think a lot of people did, but they went with their gut and took him.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason I didn't think it was a smokescreen is because like, why would you need a smokescreen when you have the first overall pick, right? You don't. And like two years ago, the Bengals literally mailed Joe Burrow a jersey before they picked him because it's like no team can stop us from picking this guy, so we don't really need to hide what we're doing. So I don't know. But let's see what else. The Giants beat the Titans 21-20 on a missed field goal last second. There was a lot of kicking woes, right? The Bengals missed an extra point to go to overtime, then missed the game-winning field goal in overtime. The Colts game, they missed a kick in overtime and ended up in a tie. And then the Titans missed a last-second field goal.
Sorry, I just had to ties are ridiculous. Like that's the most ridiculous thing. We need to tweak overtime rules so you're not having ties. Like give us college overtime rules, give us something. We don't need ties anyway.
I don't know if you're that bad and you can't win in the allotted time they're giving you plus an extra period, then I don't think any one of those teams deserve to win.
Seattle is having the Broncos defense for lunch right now. I mean, goodness.
Hey, that's good. I'm playing against somebody with the Broncos D, and I need Metcalf to put up like 25, 30 points. So,
hey, to be fair, Vic Fangio, right, might not have been a good offensive guy, but he was a defensive guy. So
that's true.
But yeah, so Saquon Barkley had 164 yards and a touchdown, and the Giants had the 265-yard plus plays for the first time in like 20 years or something crazy like that. Because they had that. They had a
Saquon's back for sure.
I'm glad too, because I think Saquon's one of the most exciting players in the league, and so I like it when he's healthy. It made me sad that he was
not when I play him fantasy.
Yeah, but I mean, there was a lot of new coaches that got wins in the week one, right? You had Brian Dable get a win. You had Kevin O'Connell get a win. And now that I said a lot, I'm blanking on anyone else. Oh, Matt Eberflus got a win for the Bears. So, and potentially Nathaniel Hackett could get a win here. So that's a pretty good week for new coaches. Also, going back to the Giants game real quick, Derrick Henry.
Mike McDaniel.
Oh, yeah, Mike McDaniel. There you go. Derrick Henry kind of kept in check. He had 81 yards on 21 carries. I know that's kind of the Derrick Henry special is like wear him down, break a big run.
But usually you've got they get down the goal line. Derrick Henry special is 21 carries for 80 yards and a couple touchdowns.
And you're like 4 touchdowns, yeah.
Yeah. But I don't know. Are you guys worried about Derrick Henry? Or I mean, he's still a freak of nature. So
maybe I think that I like Ryan Tannehill, but I think that he has his flaws, right? And I think that teams have kind of zeroed in on the fact that it's Derrick Henry dragging the offense, kicking and screaming. So I think that once teams realize that they're free to key in Derrick Henry, as long as they keep limit the deep shots that Ryan Tannehill can take, I do think that Derrick Henry's production is going to be down a little bit, just because I don't think that they've changed up the offensive scheme enough to where people aren't just going to be like, oh, Derrick Henry's the entire offense. So I don't know. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, I think he could have a down year. He's getting up there in age. But I mean, it's not like they don't really have anyone throw the ball to. Treylon Burks, rookie, had 3 receptions, 55 yards. So he did okay. Robert Woods only had 1 reception. They just don't really have anybody to throw it to. Obviously, getting rid of AJ Brown.
I was going to say, where's the stats? What was his name? Kyle Phillips, actually. He was a 5th round, I believe, rookie this year out of UCLA. Had the largest share of targets for any receiver in the league on a minimum of 20 rounds. I think it was 40% of the time he ran a route, Ryan Tannehill threw to him. So that's pretty interesting for a 5th round rookie. I mean, he had 6 catches, 66 yards.
Yeah, that was another one I was following on my phone that I was just kind of like, who is this guy? Like, because I'm vaguely familiar with his name, but not like super familiar with him. And I mean, those targets are going to be there for the taking. So maybe that's a fun little story to follow. Somebody who could have a decent year for them.
Yeah.
So we're like almost out of time here. So quickly, what is one team that surprised you this week?
In a good way?
Either way.
I think surprised and disappointed in the same. I would say the Colts. I thought they were going to be really good with Matt Ryan, and he kind of did not look amazing, and they struggled with the Texans. I thought they were going to go out there and dominate, and like I know the Texans are probably a little better than everyone's getting them credit for, but I did not have that much faith in them. I thought that they were going to be one of the worst teams. And then good surprise, I got to give a shout out to Minnesota. Love Minnesota. Was pleasantly surprised with, I was super nervous with a new head coach coming in. You don't know what he's going to look like. I was pleasantly surprised, and he seemed to be as advertised, and I was happy about that.
Joe?
For my surprises, I'm also going to toot my own team's horn. I was surprised with the Commanders. Didn't think their offense would be clicking the way that it did. Not perfect, like I said, but had a pretty solid game. And then team that was a letdown, I'd say the 49ers. I know they've had a tough game because the conditions were crappy, but you still got to find a way to beat the Bears. I mean, the Bears are not a good team. So Trey Lance didn't look all that impressive. Kind of makes you already wonder how long it'll be before they go to Garoppolo. So that would be a team that disappointed. And then also the Packers and the Cowboys I'd put on that list as well.
Can I say real quick, Trey Lance looked, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but Trey Lance looked very unimpressive, I will say. But the weather did him no credit. Like his first game starting, it was literally a torrential downpour. And it just so happened to start raining real bad. Like it seemed like God was on the Bears side because as soon as the Bears took the lead, then it just started pouring. So yeah, like Trey Lance looked not great, but he's young. There'll be growing pains, but I think that it was just a really unfavorable game to have your first start. And also the fact that their offensive line is outside of Trent Williams is not great. And the Bears have a great defensive line. I think he'll be a little bit better than he was.
I think for me, the thing that surprised me the most in a good way was the Dolphins. I feel like the offense looked a lot better with Mike McDaniel. I feel like they're going to.
I mean, you'd hope it would look better when you've got Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle.
True. Team that disappointed me the most. I'm going to go. Cowboys and Colts. I thought both would be sure playoff teams. I don't think either make the playoffs now. Well, obviously, Cowboys without Dak, so they're not going to make the playoffs. So yeah. Any hot takes after week one?
Hot takes after week one.
Vikings will represent in the NFC in the Super Bowl.
Ooh, I would like that.
I'm gonna go Chiefs. I think the Chiefs are great. Chiefs finished third in the AFC West.
That's very hot.
Let me see if I can think of a quick hot take off the bat for you. Get back to me. I'll think of one for you. Don't worry.
Super Bowl, Joe. You just said who do you have represent? You tell us who
Vikings,
you think
Bills.
MVP.
Bills get it. Josh Allen, and
gonna
he's
go
the MVP for the season. And
I'm gonna go Justin Herbert, Bills, and I'm gonna go with Joe. I'm gonna go Vikings. I think.
I don't like this.
Why not? I'm gonna go with.
I don't like that anymore.
And NFC's down.
Yeah, it's true. I say Bills Bucks. I know Bills are such a stereotypical answer, but it's really hard not to say the Bills. I say Bills Bucks, and that I gotta go Josh Allen for MVP. I think my hot take is that Baker Mayfield has the Carolina Panthers as a playoff team. They're not going to win the division, but I think that they'll be a wild card team.
I would agree with you, but they looked pretty bad this week.
Well, he looked pretty decent, actually, and they lost on like a last-second 55-yard field goal against the Browns.
That throw he had to Robbie Anderson was pretty impressive. And I think McCaffrey started to click later in the game, so I think it'll be okay.
My hot take is that the Saints don't win the division, and actually, yeah, I'll say the Panthers are going to win the division over the Saints. That's my hot take.
I actually agree with that.
Well, guys, it's been fun.
We're out of time.
But we will be back Thursday night with Bama Brigade. And so, thank y'all for listening, and we will see y'all next week or Thursday night.
Yeah, see you.
Everybody have a good one.